God damn it, Velbos, I need the PlayStation back. You can't just hog it all the time. When I'm done with it, you will get it back. It's been 3 weeks already. And it'll be 3 more weeks if you don't get off my back. Ahoy. I can't seem to get Velbos off the PlayStation 5 so I can play Street Fighter 6. Reasoning with him fell through, but thankfully, I always have a plan B. Do I smell pizza? Alright, looks like I bought myself some time. Now I know what you're probably thinking. Street Fighter? You're a Mortal Kombat player! What infidelity is this? Well, the last year and a half was a great time for fans of arcade fighting games, as not only did we get Mortal Kombat 1, but we also got Street Fighter 6 and Tekken 8. Now obviously, me being a Mortal Kombat fanboy, I jumped on MK1, and I didn't like it. I'm not gonna go into it, that's a discussion long from now, but it does have my eyes wandering to another fighting franchise. So between Street Fighter 6 and Tekken 8, I decided to go with Street Fighter because I have more history with the franchise, and between the two games, I felt like I have better odds enjoying myself with this title. So anyway, I have an odd history with Street Fighter. Despite being an MK fanatic, I still dabbled plenty in it. I had Street Fighter 2 on my old SNES and played it here and there and was extremely bad at it. I had Street Fighter 4 on my Xbox 360, and I have on record called this the best arcade fighting game of the 2000s, even though I was extremely bad at it. And back in 2021, I made a very sexy look tackling Street Fighter 5 on the PlayStation 4, and I had a generally positive experience with it, even though I was extremely bad at it. I always seem to have an interest in the series, but anytime I tried to get into it, there would be some kind of disconnect. I wouldn't be able to mesh with the gameplay and give up on it. So let's give it another shot with 6. Now, I do understand that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, but considering I just knocked out my guardian angel, trying to see if I can mesh with Street Fighter 6 might be the least insane thing I do today. So with Street Fighter 6, I decided the first thing I wanted to do was jump straight into exhibition matches to get a feel for the gameplay. Looking at the roster first, SF6 gives you 18 characters you can play as right off the bat, which is a bit on the smaller side of things. And I understand that Street Fighter is going to add a ton of DLC characters, but remember, Street Fighter 5 had 40 playable fighters and 24 of them were downloadable content. When you have more DLC characters than base, that's a bit lame, and that's how you end up with a character select screen that looks terrible. But only time will tell if Street Fighter 6 does this. I'm really happy to see some of my favorite classics return like Chun-Li, Blanca, and Zangief. Street Fighter 6 introduces some new characters like Jamie, Manon, Aki, and Kimberly, but my favorite new character is Marissa, who's an Italian female version of Zangief. I like her not because of all her muscles and status as a mommy, but I like her because she is an enthusiast of ancient Roman Greco-gladiator culture. She even wears a gladiator helmet that she takes off just to reveal a gladiator helmet-shaped haircut. I find that funny. My least favorite new character is Lily, only for the reason that she has an ambiguously young age, and watching grown men beat on her just doesn't sit right with me. But anyway, visually I really like the art style that Street Fighter 6 has going on. It's very colorful and lively. The character models and stages all have an amazing arcadic look, and I'm glad the series isn't trying to be hyper-realistic. Now let's talk about my experience with the gameplay. Of all the Street Fighters I have played, this one is my favorite. One of my issues with past games in the series was always the fact that I could never pull off any of the special moves. Excuse me, but I can't understand this. What button is that? Why can't they just put the actual controller button? This would leave me in constant state of button mashing, which could only get me so far. However, Street Fighter 6 introduces a control type called Modern Controls, where it will designate a single button to be your special move button, and whichever direction you hold the D-pad changes which special move you use. It's like how the special moves are used in Smash Brothers. What an awesome thing for Capcom to do. This makes the game so much more accessible for non-Street Fighter fans, and for the first time I feel like I know what attacks I want to use and can use them. So I'm a fan of the controls, though I still can't mesh with moving backwards acting as a block button. That just does not compute with me and throws me off. Okay, now it's time to talk about the actual fighting, and scripting this part makes me nervous. I said in my Street Fighter 5 video that if I'm not playing Mortal Kombat or Smash Brothers, then I'm out of my jurisdiction. Every fighting game is unique in its own way. They have their intricate mechanics that take a long time to fully comprehend and master. I am not qualified to talk about Street Fighter 6's mechanics, and I know you might be thinking, Soblev, then why would you review this game in the first place if you don't know how to talk about it? Well, my counter, I don't do reviews, I make looks. Notice how I'm stalling talking about it? If I remember my Street Fighter 5 video, I don't think I talked about the combat at all. Well,
I gotta do it this time.
Okay, so we have a 2D fighting game, deplete your opponent's health bar or have more health when the timer expires. We have this gauge on the bottom corner that we fill up to be able to use a powerful special move, and if we fill up more gauges, we can use an even more powerful special move. But the big new battle system Street Fighter 6 introduces is the impact drive. These meters right here underneath the health bars are, to my understanding, kinda like the meters for Mortal Kombat, as in they are used for parrying attacks and unleashing a strong block-breaking hit. But if you abuse it, you can leave yourself vulnerable to getting stunned, which I think is a great aspect of it as it prevents people from constantly spamming parries or strong attacks. This new battle system, I'd say, is well designed because at its shallowest point it's easy to understand, but there is more to it the deeper into it you go. I just don't know any of it, but I didn't need to. It's inclusive to all skill levels, including my skill level of this. So yeah, I had a solid time with the Street Fighter 6 combat. I really enjoyed it at a casual level and was able to have fun competitive matches against CPUs.
Talking about it wasn't that bad actually. I think I just get antsy whenever I talk about fighting games I'm not comfortable with, because I know for a fact fanboys are gonna jump. But Street Fighter 6 actually did a stellar job of making me comfortable with an excellent control scheme and not too complex battle system. Despite that, I do shamefully still feel that disconnect. It might be because compared to Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter just has a different feel to it. Street Fighter tends to be lighter footed and fast paced, while Mortal Kombat has more weight behind the gameplay. Which isn't me saying one is better than the other. It's just me saying when it comes to video games, I tend to prefer having a little weight compared to having mobility. I hope that makes sense.
If anything, this revelation makes me realize a lot of things, like how in Smash Bros I tend to play as heavier characters like Bowser or Ridley. In Elden Ring, I use a great axe that's slow but does a lot of damage. In Call of Duty, my favorite gun to use is the LMG, which also might be why I hate online multiplayer, because using LMGs is a death sentence when you're thrown into a map full of people who use SMGs and enter rooms like crackheads looking for spoons.
I got way off topic. Something about talking about Street Fighter makes me drift onto other topics. I'm pretty sure I did this the last time I talked about Street Fighter.
Now what is there to do in the game? Wait, before I continue, gotta check to see if Velpus is still out. We're good. So what else is there to do in the game? Well, if you ever got bored of basic matches, they had extreme battles, which were just gimmicky versions of fights, and it's a solid go around. Also, really quick, I hate how they organize the menu layout. For one, they have story mode in the arcade column, which isn't a problem in and of itself, but the problem is the fact that it's the only thing in the column. Why have a folder for stuff just to have a single folder for things? Just make things the folder. This is again reiterated with the special matches only having a single option in its column. Just add this mode to the versus folder.
This must be the best Street Fighter review ever, huh? Uh-oh. So, the game modes.
So I always measure the fighting game's merit based on its story mode, and Street Fighter 6 has two story modes. The first is the story mode, which is less of a story mode and more of an arcade mode, which is the folder name, what the hell is this menu? You pick a character, get panel cutscenes where you see what the character is up to, and then knock out either 5 or 12 fights and then get an ending. It's good, it's basic, it's a classic mode per se. But the actual story mode is the World Tour mode. You start off with customizing your own fighter. Hey, that's pretty cool. I'm continuing my new tradition of all sliders to the right and a naming convention of using the names of the bears from Naughty Bear, and I present to you Giggles, the walking spam. So Street Fighter 6 is no longer giving us a cinematic story mode where we have the game tell us an epic tale with sweet cinematics and give us fights in between. Instead, Street Fighter 6 is now an RPG that has us roam these little areas, picking up fights, going to shops, talking to NPCs, finding the Street Fighter characters and training under them to learn their techniques to add to our repertoire, and endless leveling up. This was extremely different for Street Fighter. A lot of people called this quite an ambitious thing for them to do.
And anytime I hear someone use the term ambitious or different, to me that usually means it's f***ing bad.
While it's a little entertaining, the idea of just walking up to pedestrians on the street and challenging them to a fight, but then I just start to feel bad. Like, this person looks like he's going home after a long shift at the cafe, needs to continue working on an important paper for his bachelor's, meanwhile his girlfriend's birthday is coming up so he has to figure out what's happening there, and also his mom won't stop pestering him about talking to his uncle, and you know what else he needs? A concussion! It was neat the first 3 times you do it, but it really quickly felt like grinding. The story is also kinda paper thin, which is saying something because I don't have much expectations for Street Fighter in this department. There's a gang that's terrorizing the city and they wear cardboard boxes. Honestly, my favorite part of the whole experience was when one cutscene had our friends warning Giggles about the gang randomly attacking people left and right in the city. Wait, but that's what the game has me doing! Am I the villain? World Tour is funny to pick at, its existence is silly, but playing it is fucking terrible. It's so boring, it's so tedious, and it feels so cheap. It's apparently roughly 20 hours long, but after doing it for just an hour, I had more than enough. There's just nothing fun about fighting a bunch of pedestrians without any substance and just going back and forth to initiate dialogue, especially with a story that's not engaging enough to keep me for 20 hours, and a main character that's mute and just waves their arms. I am perplexed that they chose to do this over giving us a cinematic story mode. If they wanted to really make this sandbox style game mode, then sure, make it a mode, but not the replacement of a proper story.
Gosh, first Smash Bros. Replaces the Subspace Emissary with Smash Tour, and now we have Street Fighter 6 throwing World Tour at us. I'm starting to hate tours. Well, honestly, that's all I have to say about Street Fighter 6. Now yes, there are more things to do, but that's all multiplayer.
The game emphasizes this battle hub where players meet up and interact and challenge each other, and I've heard people online praise it and call it the best battle hub of the genre, but I have no opinion. I already found the Street Fighter whose gameplay I somewhat mesh with. I don't need to ruin it with online multiplayer making me hate life. Plus, you need to make a Capcom account, and I didn't care to do that either. And while Street Fighter 6 might have made big strides in the multiplayer market, it still largely failed in terms of single player content because there isn't much to do and the World Tour feature stinks. And honestly, it's a fucking shame because had the game delivered on single player content, I'd probably say I like it more than Mortal Kombat 1. But alas, Street Fighter 6 has the best combat of the series with great multiplayer offerings, probably, but is less than desirable when it comes to offline play.
Well, that's a shame. Maybe I'll try again with Street Fighter 7 after they release about 5 championship editions of this one. Do I smell pizza bagels? Velbos?